Nestor, the effigy was a real Christian boy. Of this incident, Toph writes, "The ritual of Purim did not always end with the bloodless hanging of a mere effigy of Haman. Sometimes the effigy was a flesh and blood Christian, crucified for real during the wild revelry of the Jewish carnival." Years later in Alexandria, around the same time of the Imnestar incident, Bishop Cyril was taking aggressive actions against pagans and Jews. Scholasticus writes that the Jews, on their Sabbath, instead of adhering to their laws or spending the day in prayer, were going to theater and dance performances, and this would turn into large gatherings and eventually disorder. An edict is issued by a Roman prefect to regulate these shows, and it is read out loud at a theater. This causes a massive riot, and Christians are killed by Jews. Bishop Cyril responds with leading a mob to sack Jewish synagogues, and the Jews are expelled from the city of Alexandria. Again, we are told by historians that this was all fabricated, and that Christians, for no reason other than hatred, decided to burn synagogues. We have two sources describing similar events and the actions of Jews, and no evidence proving this event was fabricated. In the next 700 years, we have a gap of Jewish ritual murder either being less active or better concealed. There are two incidents of Jewish massacres against Christians that are rarely talked about. The Jews would find an ally against the Christians with the Persian Empire. In the ancient city of Najran, what is now southwestern Saudi Arabia, King Dunuwas, a convert to Judaism, assassinates a pro-Christian king and pursues more pro-Persian policies. Najran was a city with a strong Christian center. Dunuwas gives the order to his Jewish-run military that the Christians must convert to Judaism or die. Most Christians choose death and are burned alive in a large trench, a truly biblical holocaust or burnt offering, claiming the lives of between 4,000 and 20,000. A rock inscription remains from one of the Jewish commanders, reading that the massacre was carried out by the Lord of Jews, by the highly praised. The next massacre was in Jerusalem less than 100 years later. The Jews would actively aid the Persian army in capturing the city from the Byzantine Christians. A contemporary Christian source, Antiochus Strategos, writes that after the fall, the Jews purchased thousands of Christian captives and slaughtered them at a water reservoir called Mamilla Pool. Archaeological excavations from the area find that the skeletons are mostly non-combatants, those of adult women and children. Jewish ritual murder was most likely cloaked in conflicts during the Arab-Byzantine Wars and the Muslim invasion of Spain, where again Jews would help Arabs and would bring forth the Jewish Golden Age. In the Middle Ages, many kings and noblemen will have Jews working for them and seen as essential. The Jews' close connection to tax collecting and money lending would do little to enhance their popularity. We will also see the Christian discovery of the Jewish Talmud. The Kabbalah and the Zohar also appear during this time. In the Middle Ages, Jewish ritual murder accusations will be more frequent, more grotesque, and the Christian backlash more severe. A 12-year-old boy named William goes missing on the eve of Passover. His corpse would eventually be found in Thorpe Wood, with countless cuts and stab wounds. A Benedictine monk, Thomas of Monmouth, would write of the incident in hopes that William would be canonized as a saint. A man claiming to be a cook for the archdeacon pays William's mother to let the boy come work with him as an apprentice. William is taken to the home of a prominent wealthy Jew, where he is treated well at first, but during dinner he is grabbed by the Jews. They insert a teasel into the boy's mouth, a dried plant with hard thistles, attached with straps that are tied at the back of the head. The boy's head is then shaved. He is tied to a cross, and they torture the boy, stabbing him all over his body. They stab his head in a mockery to the crown of thorns. At the end, he is stabbed through the side, and the blade pierces his heart. The body is transported to the opposite side of the city by horseback. One rich merchant supposedly saw the Jews transporting it, but no investigation would happen, because the Jews were under special protection from the king, and they had bribed officials. Thomas of Monmouth writes that after a proper burial, miracles began to happen, and he documents these miracles across 5 books. People would travel from far to visit the shrine and ask the little martyr for a miracle. Despite his popularity, William of Norwich would not be canonized as a saint, but people would still venerate him throughout the late Middle Ages. The shrine and relics would eventually be destroyed when the Protestant Reformation swept through England. The Thomas of Monmouth writings also contain a testimony from a monk called Brother Theobald, a Jewish convert. Theobald said that in the ancient writings of Jewish ancestors, it was written that Jews could not achieve freedom or return to the lands of their fathers without shedding blood. And it was decided that every year, a Christian somewhere would be sacrificed as revenge against Christ, whom they blame for the exclusion from their fatherland. He says that the location for the yearly murder is chosen randomly by either the Jews in Spain or in Narbonne, France. In 1144, Norwich was chosen, and Theobald, who at the time was a Jew in Cambridge, was told of the murder. Hearing about the miracles associated to William afterwards is what he says inspired him to convert. Theobald must have been a Jew, because he knew that in Narbonne, France, a major center of Jewish learning and scholarship, was where the Nasi resided. The Nasi is a Jewish prince who claims direct descent from the line of David. A similar case would happen in Winchester, England, in the year 1190. The source, a monastic writer, Richard of Devizes, records the story of a French orphan boy who is told by a Jew that he should travel to England to find an apprenticeship. The boy is given a letter in Hebrew to carry with him, and told to go directly to the city of Winchester, and nowhere else. The French boy brings a friend with him to travel, who is also a poor orphan. The boy becomes a cobbler's apprentice to Jews, and the friend works elsewhere, but every night they sleep in the same room. One night, the friend waits for the boy to return from work, and he never shows. That day, it was Passover. The friend searches the city for days. When he asks the Jews about the disappearance, they suddenly treat him harshly. The boy realizes what the Jews did, and yells publicly, drawing a crowd. A Christian woman who worked in the Jew's house said she saw the boy taken down to the cellar by a Jew, and only the Jew returned. A judge would dismiss the case, because the boy was too young to swear an oath, and the woman's testimony was seen as untrustworthy, because working for Jews was against church canon. There were also rumors the judge was bribed to drop the case. The Jewish man's insistence that the boy go directly to Winchester perhaps shows that it was decided by international jury that it was Winchester's turn that year. Murder returns to Winchester again in 1232. This time, a 1-year-old boy. The body found in a church courtyard, strangled to death, the hands and feet chopped off, castrated, and the eyes and heart removed. The boy's nurse had sold him to a Jew named Abraham Pinch, while the boy's mother was sick. The boy is killed in Pinch's home with other Jews present. The only record of this case is from the findings of a jury. It finishes with a sheriff arresting Jews, and they are released after paying 20 marks, the equivalent today of £40,000. Throughout 13th century England, anti-Christian mockery and violence would persist. A deacon, who converted to Judaism for a woman, urinates on a cross in Oxford. He is burned at the stake for heresy. Also in Oxford, a Jew attacks a Christian procession and damages the cross. King Henry III orders the Jews to pay for a new cross, the base of which is still in an Oxford museum. In Lincoln, England, a Jew named Copin lures a 9-year-old boy named Hugh into his home. The boy is whipped, crowned with thorns, and strapped to a cross. Copin confesses to this murder and says that it is customary for Jews to sacrifice a child annually. The body of little Saint Hugh is found in his own well. King Henry III approves of the execution of Copin and 18 other Jews. Geoffrey Chaucer would write in the Canterbury Tales, "O young Hugh of Lincoln, slain also by cursed Jews." Multiple churches in Norwich are robbed by Jews and some Christian accomplices. They steal valuable items and desecrate the Eucharist by trampling on it. This would fuel even more anti-Jewish sentiment, and in 1290, Edward I expels the Jews from England. The first charge of ritual murder in France led to the execution of between 30 and 40 Jews. Two competing accounts of the event are by a German Jewish scholar named Ephraim ben Jacob and the Norman monk Robert of Torigny. Ben Jacob's story is that a man's horse is startled after hearing a loud splash in the Loire River. This leads him to believe that the Jews dumped a body. The entire Jewish community is arrested, even though no body is ever found, and no one reported a child missing. Count Theobald V has a Jewish mistress named Pulchelina, a rich moneylender. She tries to persuade him to let the Jews go. In the end, her and her daughters are also burned along with the other Jews. Robert of Torigny writes that the Jews had crucified a child at Easter. In contempt of Christians,